want to tell you a story today about meeting people where they are at on their healing journey instead of forcing them onto a journey that they might not be ready and or willing to take, that you want them to be on. This is a really important concept that took me years to understand. So if you'll come along with me today, I'm going to just sit down with you right here and share. Okay, so number 20 on my list of 86 things that I did and tried along my gut healing journey, in a decade plus long journey, is that I learned to meet people where they were at on their healing journey instead of where I personally wanted them to be at. So I have my shirt, Love Makes the World Go Round, on, which I thought was really appropriate for this video for today. So if you've been watching this whole series on my 86 things, number 20, I just briefly mentioned, and I said that I would share the story in more detail. So here it goes. So my entire life growing up, I don't think I ever saw my dad eat a vegetable or anything that was quote unquote healthy. We were very meat and potatoes type family. He would bring these Little Debbie's snack cakes in his lunch every day. He would bring candy and sodas. He drank Pepsi. Who drinks Pepsi? He didn't even drink Coke. It was Pepsi. Every single day, multiple cans. He drank beer. He was a Mason. He smoked many cigarettes every single day. I'm guessing a pack or more probably every day. And he just generally did not live a healthy lifestyle. My dad was very active because he was a Mason. And so that's what he did all day. To this day, I swear that is what kept him alive for so long, is because he was so active. And in that sense, he was very healthy. But beyond that, from a lifestyle and a food standpoint, my dad was not very healthy. And so growing up, I do remember, harping on him for the regular things that most kids probably harp on their fathers for. Dad, don't smoke. Dad, do you think you should be doing that? Maybe you could try some eggs. That might be good. Whatever it was. I harped on him forever and ever and ever. And then I went away to college, and then I moved away to California, and it never changed. It never changed in the sense that I accepted my dad because I thought he was the coolest person ever. He had great stories, and I loved hanging out with him. I loved having a drink with him. I loved doing all that stuff with him, but that didn't change the fact that I harped on him all the time for the way that he was living. And as time went on, and I would go home to my parents' house to visit, I would notice more and more over-the-counter medications in their cabinets. I noticed a lot of Pepto-Bismol. I know that he took a lot of anti-diarrheal things or things just for an upset stomach, Tums. He would pack it in his lunchbox along with the cake and the cookies and the sandwiches and the cigarettes and the soda. And I continued to harp on him. Because to me, at that point, after I was diagnosed with colitis and then SIBO and I was really sick, it all started to make sense, right? I thought, this is how we heal. We have to take care of ourselves. I started studying and learning and researching, and I knew that the way he was living, the things he was eating, and the masks, i.e. the Pepto-Bismol and the Tums that he was taking, were just that, masks. They were never going to help him. And so I said, well, maybe you could switch this so that you don't have to take so much of this. Or I kept giving him ideas, and I kept telling him, you have to stop doing this, or harping on him. And I wouldn't say judging, but it was, judging him. I would tell him, I would judge him out loud. I would judge him internally. It was all the things. And then one day in November of 2017, my mom had just come to visit my family in California. She came by herself around Halloween. And I noticed during that trip she was on the phone or trying to call my dad a lot, but I didn't think much of it. So she got home back to Minnesota after she came to visit, and we got a call in November, and it was my mom. And I was pretty used to doing a lot of texting with my mom. I still am. And so when a phone call comes, it usually always meant something. And so she called and she was crying and she said, Dad's in the hospital. He is going to have most of his colon removed. They think it's cancer. And that was the start of everything. And obviously, there's so much stuff that happened from the initial diagnosis. He was diagnosed that week then with stage 4 colon cancer. There's so many things that happened between then and up until the time that he died, and those are all for different conversations and books that I'm writing and things that I'm working on, and the reason why I'm so passionate about this community. But what I want to share and why number 20 is meeting people where they are at on their journey is so important is because of this. So my dad was diagnosed in November of 2017. And if you know my story, you know that in the summer, July to be exact, of 2018 is when I healed for the last time for good. It was the 4th and final time I ever relapsed from SIBO. I am over 3 years now, symptom-free, healed, doing phenomenal. But what happened was that summer I healed. And I was so worried that I was going to relapse, given that on a daily basis, we were going to do chemo with my dad, and I was going through those motions with him and really trying to understand what was going on with what was happening with my dad, and how could it be that I was healing, my dad was dying. And something started to occur to me was that as my dad got worse, he really started to take a pretty steep decline then in about May of 2019. So shortly after, several months after I was healed for good. And something started to occur to me, and that was I had spent years criticizing my dad. And instead of meeting him where he was at and doing very simple things like just loving him and understanding and just doing what he needed at that time, I chose a very different route. And so as he started to take this very steep decline, I just decided that none of it mattered anymore. I knew that none of it mattered anymore because I had healed, and in order for me to keep healthy and well enough to have the just like the courage and the health to get through the day-to-day things that was happening with my dad, I needed to do less judging and just stay with my dad where he was at. And so I gave it all up. Now, a lot of people, when they are a parent or a loved one is dealing with cancer, they are trying to give them all the nutrients and do whatever they can. But at that point, it wasn't going to help. And seeing my dad just be and just do his thing, riding out his days and just really embracing the time that was left was far more important. So I remember I would go and I would get him shakes from McDonald's. He could see that I had healed and he knew what it took, but that's not what he wanted and that's not what he wanted to do. And so the things that he needed, was me just sitting there with him, and I look back and I think, what if I could have just embraced that love and compassion for years on end and maybe tried to sneak a vegetable in here or there without feeling so much hostility that he couldn't do the things that I was doing to get better? What may have changed? And maybe the answer is nothing. Probably the answer is nothing for him. But for me and for my healing journey, it may have massively changed things. And so my father passed in that August of 2019, and it was crushing. It was the worst thing I've ever been through in my entire life. But what I was able to do is I was able to look back, and I was able to really be able to see and to now be able to communicate to people that we have to love them where they're at on their journey, not where we want them to be. And I had actually released so many emotions from the experience that a couple days after my dad had passed, or I actually think it was maybe more like a week after my dad had passed, I was ill, so ill. I could not stop throwing up. I knew I didn't have the flu. I just knew that all of these things that had been bottled up, and these thoughts and these emotions that I had finally released during his last few months on earth, that letting go of him, I knew it was okay then, because I had accepted him for who he was, for the choices that he made, for him and also for me, and also so that I could move on, so that I would not relapse. And I think it's something that's just really important for us to all understand, whether you have a loved one who has stage 4 colon cancer, or death is in your future or not. Even if it's something as simple as you see a friend who constantly complains of a stomach ache, and you try to suggest something and they don't want to take that. The point is to really just take a step back, love them anyway, meet them where they're at. When they're ready, they will be ready to join you. And for yourself, if you're not ready to make the changes that you might need to make to see healing happen, just know that, accept that, honor that, and move forward in your own journey. When the time is right, when you are ready to heal, you'll know. It took me years and years and years to finally believe and think and know that I was capable and ready to begin my own journey. And I believe that that is the case for every single person out there that deals with any sort of digestive issue, any disease, autoimmune disease, anything. And that's what I want you to take today, is just meet yourself, meet your loved ones wherever they are at on their journey today. I hope you've enjoyed this. Subscribe, leave comments, questions, anything below, and I will see you next time.